All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Fallon Lee O'Brien. I am the host of Fallon's Daily Toast. I was intending to go live at 2:30 with a member of Refuse Fascism, Scott Gilbert, but there were some technical difficulties, so here we are now. A little late, but here. So, to give you a little understanding of what Refuse Fascism is, it's a movement of people coming from diverse perspectives, united in recognition that the Trump-Pence regime poses a catastrophic danger to humanity and the planet, and that it is our responsibility to drive them from power. Why is it important to protest? Protesting events increases the visibility of a cause, promotes a sense of solidarity, builds active relationships, and demonstrates power, the power of the people. So thank you so much. If you want to move on in. Scott Gilbert, everyone. Thank you so much for being on the show. Yeah.
And I don't know if you wanted this.
You want to move in a little closer here?
Yes.
Yeah. So to give an if you don't know what is fascism? Some people ask, right? Fascism has direction and momentum. I feel it more now than ever. Maybe that's just because I'm coming awake to it, but dissent is piece by piece criminalized. The truth is bludgeoned, group after group is demonized and targeted along a trajectory that leads to real horrors. All of this has already begun under the Trump regime. History has shown that fascism must be stopped before it becomes too late.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about what's going on.
Well, on November 4th, tomorrow, it begins. We're going to have daily activities all across the country in 22 cities, starting with 22 cities, with the main slogan, "This nightmare must end, the Trump-Pence regime must go." And our other slogan is, we refuse to accept a fascist America. In the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America. And not just here, though, because what the U.S. does affects the whole planet. And we feel we're at an existential moment right now where not only the crimes of this government that they've been perpetuating and saying they're going to do and then follow up and do it, but what they've unleashed. And the President of the United States is talking about nuclear weapons use on North Korea. Obliterating that country. Think about that for a moment. 26 million people's lives gone in a second. I mean, what kind of... Even Hitler couldn't put together a horrific crime like that. We need to stop this now before it consolidates and we're not able to do anything, including even sitting here and having a show like this. People need to recognize what time it is, and a lot of people are really, really scared and upset and outraged by what's going on. They recognize that there's been some qualitative leap between Obama's administration, and yes, he had some crimes for sure, his whole administration, but there's been a real qualitative leap when the Trump-Pence regime came to power. But people are feeling very disillusioned or distraught or depressed because they don't see a way out. And refusefascism.org, and check out our website nationally. We're in many cities, our national offices in New York. Just go to the website and it can link you up with a lot of stuff that's going on. We say we do have a way out, that we're going to start in our thousands tomorrow in the streets, in different cities, and build momentum over time, doing many different actions day after day until we drive this whole Trump-Pence regime out of power. We have actions already planned from now through November 19th. But this can't happen without the millions of people joining in with us, that they have to ask themselves, what time is it? Is this truly fascist? And if it is, then you see not only the necessity, but the possibility of doing something about it. People need to really come to grips with that now. You look at all the crimes of this government, from the attacks on 11 million Latino people with DACA to the mass incarceration, and Sessions now saying that he wants the maximum penalty for anyone committing a crime, to Sessions going to the border and saying, that these Latino people are scum. This is disgusting. And when Trump threatened nuclear war, there should have been thousands and thousands, if not millions of people in the streets that night. It was a great start last spring when the first Muslim ban came in, and hundreds of people across the country, I think it was even in the thousands, went to different airports and demonstrated. That was the kind of stuff that we need and need more of. But now we have then the Muslim 2 ban, 2.0, that got fought by the courts, and now the Muslim 3.0 ban, which is worse than the first ban and affecting more countries and more people now. This is how fascism works. It goes stage by stage, step by step, consolidating and picking away at different groups.
I mean, we've been it's experiencing fascism for a very long time. If you can, just look at what's been done to the African community. Mm-hmm. So Presidents Trump and Pence, this isn't new. This is an old pony show. They just are the new face of it. And so there's just this time now more than ever, it's time to get together and to speak up for all groups. All the groups, all the Democratic Socialist Party, Republican parties, all the parties, all the organizations need to really come together and unite. I think that if that were the sort of the case, and if that could be a reality, then we'd be a lot further ahead instead of all this division and our side is better and than your side and all of this. So fascism is not just a gross combination of horrific reactionary policies. It is a qualitative change in how society is governed. Fascism foments and relies on xenophobic nationalism, racism, misogyny, and aggressive reinstitution of oppressive traditional values. In Trump's election campaign, he encouraged and fed on the threat and use of violence to build a movement and to come to power. In his inaugural address, he pledged allegiance only to this movement. What is crucial to understand is that once in power, fascism essentially eliminates traditional democratic rights. Do you feel, though, that this is a democracy? Do you feel we're in or what do you think this really...
Well, we're living in a democracy of sorts, yes. There's one class
really
ruling over another.
Strange democracy.
But I don't have any illusions that it is a democracy run by the people. No. But what makes fascism different is how society is run. From civil rights to women's rights, they're changing all the laws now. They put on the books, 241 laws to try, as soon as the Supreme Court makes abortion illegal or restricts it even more, to go after women. And even now they're going after birth control.
But let me ask you this, though. I mean, because so there's this big protest that's planned, but so how are you going to sustain it, and what are you going to put in place once you've met your objective, which is removing Trump and Pence? Are there any plans, any long sought, any goals, any milestones, anything of that nature?
Well, to answer the first part of the question, it has to be sustained, nonviolent, determined actions across the country, not just by a few people, but this must grow into very large numbers of people where the political terrain is literally changed. I think about the Jim Crow and the Freedom Riders back in 1961 and how courageous it was that just something like 21 people got on these buses and were beaten at lunch counters and all of that, but they persisted to the point where hundreds and hundreds of more people came in and joined them in the jails, to the point where the Kennedy administration had to respond to that. So there were laws on the books, but the government wasn't doing anything about that at the time. How just a few people, the Freedom Riders, it literally transformed the terrain in this country for a period of time. That's the kind of sustained actions day after day that we need to have all across the country. And what we're talking about is much, much bigger than refusefascism.org. We don't own this. We're initiating this. But for this to happen, all these different groups need to participate, from women's groups to Indivisible to Black Lives Matter to the Democrat and Republican, there's sections of them, they don't like what's going on. They're really scared. Understanding the necessity that the whole Trump-Pence regime must go, not just Trump. You know, people talk about impeaching, but then they're scared about getting Pence, and they should be scared. This is, a fascist theocrat. He literally, believes in the Bible literally and wants to put that in place, and has said so. But all of them, Sessions, Mattis, Pruitt, Zinko, Carson, DeVos, all of them need to go. There needs to be such a political upheaval in this country so that they can no longer stay in power. And, Refuse Fascism does not have a plan of what to put in its place. Our goal is to get rid of a fascist government so that ideas can contend and blossom and compete, figuring out where society should go and moving and being a better world. How that comes out is unclear. There's some people who say we need a revolution, and other people say, we need to elect better Democrats.
And others that say that there's unity in reparations, too. I mean, more of a restorative understanding of what, or not restorative, but a clear understanding of really the history of this country and what it was built upon, and which is genocide, slavery, killing the natives, completely exploiting resources, African resources and people. They were the first commodity traded on the stock market. They created Wall Street, was black men and women who were used for the cotton and tobacco and all other trade. And so, yeah, I think it would be great to go back to the root of where the pain began, right, on the land. And so reparations is a big thing to me. I truly believe that there are so many families that deserve restorative and reparation. Anyways, but that's something, there are all of these ideas blossoming. Beautiful. Beautiful, because then that needs to happen. And you don't believe it'll happen until we get Trump and Pence out of there.
No, in fact, I think we have a certain window that's not very long that if we don't act on, that window is going to close. That as this fascist government chips away, piecemeal, piece by piece along the way, putting into place what they want, at a certain point that window is going to close and consolidate. And once that does, we're not going to be able to do anything. Yes, it's a long shot about what we're talking about, but it is clearly our best shot. I try and imagine my mother and grandparents were Holocaust survivors of living in 1932, say in Germany. The Nazi Party was rising, this fascist party was rising, hadn't come to power completely yet, had representatives in the cabinet and the Reichstag. And then eventually Hitler, through due process, was appointed chancellor. Okay? Trump was elected. Whether you believe the election was legal or illegal, we think it's illegal, but okay, illegitimate, excuse me. That people have to recognize, if you were living at that time and knew then what you know about how fascism develops, what would you do? Would you go along, as many, many Germans did, and were good Germans, so to speak, while one group after another group was picked off? They're talking about rounding up 11 million Latino people now. Muslims and other peoples of Arab nations are very, very scared. Blacks, as you noted, historically have been oppressed. Are we going to just let this go and keep developing till it doesn't matter anymore? As Niemöller said, first they came for the communists, I said nothing. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I was not a trade unionist, so I said nothing. Then they came for the Jews, and on, till when they finally rounded him up, it was too late. He was a Protestant minister. Niemöller also raised a really interesting point in 1946, shortly after the war, where he poses the question, what would it have been like if 12,000 Protestant ministers had stood up, went to their congregations and said, no, we are not going along with this. We are not going to go along with this fascist development and regime. And he notes that, yes, some of us, as he put it, would have our heads lopped off, but there wouldn't have been 6 million Jews that were murdered, 20 million other people murdered. The millions of people that were murdered, in the war, on the Soviet front, and so forth. You know, he really was posing, he had learned from that, and he did not want that to happen again. And we have to say never again. We have to stop it now. Everyone has to look inside themselves and say, what time is it? What are they going to do? You know, going to school, going to work, is that important anymore? If, you know, it's like living in 1968, 69 in the U.S. when millions of us as students stepped out. School meant nothing. The real learning was going on in the streets because people were dying in Vietnam. People were being murdered by the U.S. government in Vietnam. That's the kind of attitude people need to have now. They have to break out or ACT UP. What did they do? They saw a real genocide going on against gay people in general and people with HIV, and they took it upon themselves to, you know, set a precedent that was fantastic. You know, their actions changed what happened in this country.
Wow, so it begins tomorrow, November 4th, and where, and I know if you want to name the cities that it's actually going to be, you know, sprouting out, sprouting up everywhere.
Sprouting, yes, that's a good word. Here in Boston, by the way, we're going to be at the Boston Common Bandstand starting at 4 o'clock. And we will be giving out a vision of what the next 2 weeks will look at. But the other cities from Akron, Ohio, Atlanta, Austin, Texas, Boston, Chicago, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Falmouth, Massachusetts, Honolulu, Indianapolis, Los Angeles, Miami, Minneapolis, New York City, Omak, Philadelphia, Pittsfield, Massachusetts, Portland, Salem, Oregon, San Francisco, Seattle, Tucson. If you live anywhere near these cities and can get to them, please hook up with these people. And if you can't, well, have a demonstration of your own in whatever city you're living in. Go to refusefascism.org. Check out the website. If you really understand the slogan, in the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America, you need to step out now. Be part of all these different organizations and individuals. Doesn't, you know, go to your organization. If you're a member of a particular group like Black Lives Matter, go to them and say, we need to be part of this. You know, as this builds, or if you're a member of a local Democratic group, go to them. If you're a member of an environmental organization, women's organization, gay organization, whatever it is, go to them and really lay out what time is it. And you will find that there are millions of people who are really scared and want to do something, and we do have a way out. I hope that addresses
It does.
what you're asking.
Yeah, no, it does.
You know, it's a long shot, but it's the only shot we have. People have to recognize every single day we're getting hit with a different crime by this regime, right? You deal with one thing, and all of a sudden the next day you find out that they're stripping away millions and millions of dollars that are going to affect people in healthcare, right? It must be very scary right now to be an elderly person living on a fixed income, and you don't know if you're going to get healthcare. You know, law after law, or, you know, presidential order after presidential order are chipping away at all this. We can't wait till something happens like sudden martial law. You know, what happened in New York City a few days ago could have triggered that. We can't wait for that. We need to have sustained, nonviolent, determined actions across this country day after day until we drive this regime out. Join us November 4th and on.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You're
This
welcome.
is a very big privilege, and I hope we get this out to millions.
Yeah, please share.
Please share. Please get on the website, refusefascism.org. Please respond to Fallon with your questions.
Yeah.
We can have more dialogue about this. But get it out on all the social medias, all the different ways you know how to reach people. We need to say no stone was not unturned working to have this happen.
Well, thank you. Thank you, folks. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in again. As Scott mentioned, if you have any questions, please feel free to send them along. And, you know, sometimes it's just as simple as, you know, standing in your neighborhood with a big sign that says no, you know, to fascism. I mean, protesting, there are so many different levels of showing that you won't lay down to what they're trying to do, and that you'll use whatever means necessary. Your voice and your artistic. Use your imagination. This is like a time to just use your imagination and really be bold and courageous. And thank you so much again.
Thank you.
So much love to all of you. Ciao.